A storm tears across the frontier night. A wounded cowboy collapses beside a dying campfire, whispering, "Tell her I did my best." Suddenly, an Apache warrior appears from the shadows, despite being sworn enemies, with a desperate warning: she's taken. If we don't ride now, she won't see sunrise. The cowboy's eyes widen. The woman they both love is in danger. Blood runs hot down Jake Thornton's side, mixing with the cold rain that hammers the desert floor. Lightning splits the sky like a jagged knife, illuminating the rugged canyon walls in bursts of silver and shadow. His horse lies dead 20 yards back, shot through the neck by rustlers he'd been tracking for 3 days straight. The campfire he'd managed to light sputters and hisses, fighting against the deluge, throwing weak orange light across his pale face. Jake's fingers tremble as he presses a torn piece of his shirt against the bullet wound beneath his ribs. The pain is sharp, relentless, like a branding iron held against bare skin. His breath comes in ragged gasps. Thunder rolls across the mesa, drowning out his groans. The storm feels alive, angry, as if the heavens themselves are punishing the earth below. "God," he whispers through cracked lips, his voice barely audible over the wind, "if this is the end, just let her know. Let Sarah know I tried." His vision blurs. The fire dims. The rain beats harder. Then, from the darkness beyond the firelight, comes a sound. Not thunder. Not wind. Footsteps. Jake's hand fumbles for his revolver, but his strength is fading. The metallic click of the hammer being pulled back echoes in his ears, but his arm feels like lead. A shadow moves, tall and silent, cutting through the rain like a ghost. Jake's heart pounds. His finger tightens on the trigger. "Don't," a voice commands, low and steady, carrying an accent shaped by the desert wind and ancient words. The figure steps into the dying light. Bronzed skin glistens with rain. Long black hair hangs loose over broad shoulders. War paint, faded by the storm, still marks his cheekbones. The Apache warrior stands motionless, his dark eyes locked on Jake's. "You," Jake rasps, recognition flooding his face. Running Bear. The Apache doesn't move. His expression is unreadable, carved from stone. For a long moment, neither man speaks. The history between them is heavy, layered with old wounds and broken trusts. They've crossed paths before, years ago, during the conflicts that left scars on both their peoples. Jake once rode with a cavalry unit that burned Apache camps. Running Bear once led raids that left homesteads in ashes. Enemies. By every law of the land and every code of honor they know, they should kill each other on sight. But Running Bear doesn't draw his knife. Jake doesn't pull his trigger. "She's taken," Running Bear says, his voice cutting through the storm like a blade through silk. His jaw tightens. "Sarah, raiders took her from the village 3 hours past sunset. White men, but not soldiers. Deserters. Outlaws. They ride south toward the border. If we don't ride now, she won't see sunrise." Jake's world tilts. The pain in his side vanishes, replaced by something far worse, a cold dread that wraps around his chest like iron chains. "Sarah?" His voice cracks. "What do you mean taken?" "They came fast. She was gathering herbs near the river when they grabbed her. By the time the sentries reached her, the raiders were gone. They left 2 men dead and a trail only a fool would follow." Running Bear's eyes narrow. "Or a desperate one." Jake tries to sit up, but his body protests. He grits his teeth, forcing himself upright, despite the agony screaming through his ribs. "How many?" "At least 8, maybe more, heavily armed. They know the terrain." Running Bear steps closer, crouching beside the fire. His face is grim. "They're not taking her for ransom. They're taking her to sell." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Sarah. Sweet, brave Sarah, with her gentle smile and fierce spirit. The woman who saved his life 2 years ago when he was half dead from fever in her father's barn. The woman he'd loved from the moment she handed him water and told him, in her quiet, determined voice, You're not dying today, Cowboy. Not on my watch. Why do you care? Jake spits, anger flaring despite his weakness. You're Apache. She was white. Why would you risk your neck for her? Running Bear's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. Pain, loss, something deeper than words. She is not just white, he says quietly. She is daughter of my people. When she was 10 winters old, her family's wagon was attacked. My mother found her, alone, crying over her dead parents. We took her in, raised her. She learned our ways. She speaks our tongue. She is Apache as much as she is white. Jake stares, the revelation sinking in like stones in deep water. He'd known Sarah had lived with the Apache for years before returning to the frontier settlements. She'd told him once, late at night under a blanket of stars, that she'd been saved by a kind woman with braided hair and gentle hands. But she'd never mentioned Running Bear, never said his name. She never told me about you, Jake says, his voice hoarse. And she never told me about you, Running Bear replies, his tone edged with bitterness. Until I saw her wear your mother's locket around her neck. Silence. The rain pounds. The fire crackles weakly. Jake's mind races. Sarah, in the hands of monsters, being dragged south toward a fate worse than death. Every second they waste is another mile between them and her. Then we ride, Jake says, pushing himself to his feet. Pain explodes through his body, but he locks his jaw and swallows the scream. Now, Running Bear rises, studying the wounded cowboy with cold calculation. You can barely stand. You'll slow me down. I don't care, Jake growls, his hand gripping the saddle of Running Bear's horse for support. I'm not letting you go alone. She needs both of us. For a moment, Running Bear considers. Then, with a sharp nod, he moves to his horse, a sleek paint stallion built for speed and endurance. Then keep up, white man, or die trying. Jake grabs his gear, strapping his gun belt tight despite the blood still seeping through his makeshift bandage. He climbs onto the back of the horse behind Running Bear, gritting his teeth against the pain. The storm rages on, but inside him, a different storm is building. A storm of fear, fury, and love. Running Bear kicks the horse into motion. They plunge into the night, into the rain, into the unknown. 2 men, 1 mission. And the woman who binds them both. The rain finally breaks near dawn, leaving the desert air thick with the smell of wet sagebrush and iron-red clay. Jake and Running Bear ride in silence, the only sound the steady rhythm of hoofbeats against the soaked earth. The horizon glows faint pink and gold, painting the mesas in shades of fire and shadow. Jake's wound throbs with every jolt, but he doesn't complain. Pride won't let him. Not in front of Running Bear, not when Sarah's life hangs in the balance. He focuses on the landscape ahead, scanning for signs of the raiders' trail. Running Bear guides the horse with practiced ease, his eyes reading the ground like a book written in mud and stone. There, Running Bear says, pointing to a cluster of broken branches near a narrow canyon entrance. They stopped here, rested, 2 hours, maybe less. Jake squints at the trampled earth, the scattered hoofprints, the remnants of a hastily made fire. He sees what Running Bear sees, the carelessness of men who think they're untouchable. They're not expecting anyone to follow them this fast. They're fools, Running Bear replies flatly. But dangerous fools. Don't mistake arrogance for weakness. They press on, the canyon walls rising steep and jagged on either side. The air grows cooler in the shade, and Jake shivers despite the rising sun. His shirt is stiff with dried blood and his head feels light. He grips the saddle tighter, refusing to fall. Why did you come back for me? Jake asks suddenly, his voice breaking the tense silence. You could have left me to die. Gone after her alone. Running Bear doesn't answer right away. When he does, his tone is guarded. I need you alive. You know the white man's trails, the places they hide, the ways they think. He pauses. And Sarah, she cares for you. If I return without you, she will never forgive me. Jake's chest tightens. You love her. It's not a question. It's a statement, raw and undeniable. Running Bear's shoulders stiffen. She is my sister, my family. I would die for her without hesitation. That's not what I asked. Another pause, longer this time. When Running Bear speaks again, his voice is quieter, almost vulnerable. Yes, I love her, but not in the way you think. Or perhaps, not in the way she thinks. He exhales slowly. She was a child when she came to us. I watched her grow, watched her heal, watched her become one of us. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing her as the broken girl my mother saved. I saw her as the woman who could stand beside me, strong, wise, brave. Jake listens, his heart heavy. He understands that feeling all too well. But she chose you, Running Bear continues, bitterness creeping into his words. The white cowboy who rode into town with his easy smile and reckless courage. She chose the man who reminded her of the world she left behind. She didn't choose me, Jake says quietly. She needed someone who understood what it's like to lose everything. To start over. We were both broken, Running Bear. We found each other in that brokenness. And I was not broken, EGH for her, Running Bear says, his voice hard as flint. Jake doesn't respond. What can he say? The truth is too complicated, too painful. Sarah carries two WO worlds inside her, the white frontier and the Apache heartland. She's torn between them, belonging fully to neither. Maybe that's why she gravitated toward Jake, another lost soul searching for a place to call home. The canyon opens into a wide valley, dotted with juniper trees and rocky outcroppings. Running Bear pulls the horse to a stop, his eyes narrowing as he studies the landscape. They split up here. 3 riders went east. The rest continued south. They're trying to cover their tracks. Which way do we go? Jake asks. South, the main group has her. The others are just decoys. Running Bear dismounts, examining the ground more closely. He picks up a scrap of cloth caught on a thorn bush, torn lace stained with dirt. Sarah's dress. Jake's jaw clenches. She's leaving us a trail. Smart, Running Bear says, tucking the cloth into his belt. But risky. If they notice, they'll punish her. The thought makes Jake's blood boil. He imagines Sarah, bound and frightened, fighting back in the only way she can. Brave. Always so brave. They remount and ride south, following the trail deeper into Apache territory. The land here is sacred, forbidden to white men by treaty and tradition. Jake feels the weight of it, the eyes of ancestors watching from the rocks and trees. He's trespassing, risking war just by being here, but he doesn't care. Sarah is worth any risk. As they ride, memories flood Jake's mind, unbidden and vivid. He sees Sarah in the barn, her hair tied back with a ribbon, her hands gentle as she cleaned his wounds and whispered prayers over his fevered body. He remembers waking to find her asleep in a chair beside him, exhausted from 3 days of tending to him without rest. He sees her laughing by the river, her bare feet splashing in the cool water, her face lit with joy as she taught him how to catch fish with his hands. "You're too loud," she'd teased, her eyes sparkling. "You have to be patient, Jake. Let the river bring them to you." He sees her crying in his arms the night she told him about her parents, about the attack, about the blood and the screaming and the silence that followed. "I couldn't save them," she'd whispered, her voice breaking. "I was just a child and I couldn't save them." "You survived," Jake had told her, holding her close. "That's what they wanted. That's how you honor them." Those memories burn in his chest now, fueling his determination. Sarah saved him in more ways than one. She gave him purpose when he had none. She gave him hope when all he felt was despair. And now she needs him. Running Bear's voice pulls him back to the present. "We're close. I can smell their fire." Sure enough, a thin column of smoke rises in the distance, barely visible against the pale sky. Jake's heart pounds. How do we do this? "We watch first," Running Bear says. Learn their numbers, their weapons, their weaknesses. He glances back at Jake. And then we strike. They dismount and move on foot, creeping through the rocks and brush with practiced silence. Running Bear moves like a shadow, every step deliberate and soundless. Jake follows as best he can, though his injury makes him slower, clumsier. Sweat drips down his face. His vision swims. Finally, they reach a ridge overlooking a small camp. 8 men sit around a fire, laughing and drinking. Their horses are tied nearby, restless and tired. And there, tied to a post near the largest tent, is Sarah. Jake's breath catches. Even from this distance, he can see the bruises on her face, the torn sleeve of her dress, the defiant tilt of her chin. She's not broken. Not yet, but she's hurting. We go tonight, Running Bear whispers, his eyes locked on Sarah. When they're drunk and careless. Jake nods, his hand resting on his revolver. And if something goes wrong? Running Bear meets his gaze, his expression deadly serious. Then we die together. The sun climbs higher, baking the desert floor until the air shimmers with heat. Jake and Running Bear retreat deeper into the rocks, finding shade beneath an overhang where they can rest and plan without being seen. The tension between them is thick, unspoken words hanging heavy in the stifling air. Jake leans back against the cool stone, his hand pressed against his side. The bleeding has slowed, but the pain hasn't. He watches Running Bear sharpen his knife with slow, deliberate strokes, the blade catching the light with each pass. The Apache warrior's face is a mask, unreadable and distant. "We need water," Jake says, his voice dry and cracked. Running Bear nods toward a leather pouch hanging from his belt. "Drink, but not too much. We have a long night ahead." Jake takes the pouch and drinks sparingly, the lukewarm water barely easing his parched throat. He hands it back, and for a moment, their fingers brush. It's a small thing, insignificant, but it feels weighted, like a fragile bridge being built between 2 chasms. "Tell me about her," Jake says quietly. "About Sarah, before." Running Bear stops sharpening his knife. His jaw tightens. For a long moment, Jake thinks he won't answer. Then, slowly, the Apache warrior speaks. "She was small when my mother brought her to our camp, thin, afraid. She wouldn't speak for days, just stared at the fire with empty eyes." Running Bear's voice softens, the hard edges smoothing into something almost tender. "My mother sang to her every night, old songs. Songs about the earth and sky, about the spirits that watch over lost children." Slowly, Sarah began to heal. Jake listens, his heart aching. He's heard pieces of this story from Sarah, but never in such detail. Never with such pain. "She learned our language quickly," Running Bear continues. "Faster than any child I'd ever seen. She had a gift for words, for understanding. My mother said she had an old soul, one that had lived many lives." He pauses, his eyes distant. "She became my shadow, followed me everywhere, asked 1,000 questions. Why do we thank the deer before we eat? Why do we pray to the 4 directions? Why does the wind sing at night?" A faint smile crosses Running Bear's face, brief and fleeting. "I taught her to ride, to track, to survive. And she taught me patience, kindness, how to see the world through different eyes." Jake swallows hard. "She told me once that you saved her life." "And she saved mine," Running Bear replies. "When I was 15 winters, I was bitten by a rattlesnake during a hunt. The poison spread fast. I would have died if Sarah hadn't sucked the venom out and kept me awake through the fever. She sat with me for 3 days, talking, singing, refusing to let me slip away." His voice drops. "I owe her everything. The weight of that debt hangs in the air, unspoken but understood." Jake feels it too, that same fierce loyalty, that same desperate need to protect her at all costs. "She's strong," Jake says. "Stronger than either of us." "I know," Running Bear replies. "But even the strongest can be broken if pushed too far." The thought chills Jake to his core. He closes his eyes, and another memory surfaces, sharp and clear. It was late autumn, the air crisp and cool. Sarah had invited him to a harvest festival in the nearby settlement, a rare moment of peace between the two worlds she straddled. They danced under lanterns strung between trees, her laughter ringing out like music. "You're a terrible dancer," she'd teased, her eyes bright with joy. "I'm a cowboy, not a ballroom gentleman," Jake had replied, pulling her closer despite his clumsy footwork. Later, as they walked back under a sky full of stars, Sarah had stopped and turned to him, her expression suddenly serious. "Promise me something, Jake. Anything. Promise me you'll never give up, no matter how hard things get. No matter how hopeless it seems." Her voice had trembled. "I've lost too many people I love. I can't lose you too." Jake had cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't know had fallen. "I promise, Sarah, I'm not going anywhere." That promise echoes in his mind now, a vow he intends to keep no matter the cost. Running Bear stands, sheathing his knife. "We move when the sun sets. 2 hours, maybe less. You should rest while you can." "I can't rest," Jake says. "Not while she's down there. Then at least check your wound. If you die from infection before we reach her, you're no use to anyone." Jake grimaces but knows Running Bear is right. He lifts his shirt, revealing the ugly gash beneath his ribs. The flesh around it is red and swollen, angry. Running Bear crouches beside him, examining it with a critical eye. "You're lucky," the Apache warrior says. "The bullet went through, no metal left inside. But it needs cleaning." He pulls a small pouch from his belt, opening it to reveal dried herbs and roots. "This will hurt." "Everything hurts," Jake mutters. Running Bear crushes the herbs between his palms, mixing them with a few drops of water to form a paste. He spreads it over Jake's wound, and the cowboy hisses through his teeth, his muscles tensing against the burning sensation. "Breathe," Running Bear commands. "The pain will pass." Jake forces himself to inhale slowly, exhale slowly, focusing on the rhythm rather than the fire eating through his side. Gradually the burning fades to a dull throb, and with it comes a strange sense of clarity. "Why are you helping me?" Jake asks. "You could have left me to bleed out, gone after her yourself. Why bother keeping me alive?" Running Bear doesn't look up, his hand steady as he binds Jake's wound with a strip of clean cloth. "Because Sarah would never forgive me if I let you die. And because, whether I like it or not, you're part of her life now. Part of her heart." He ties off the bandage with a sharp tug. "I cannot change that. But I can make sure you're alive to see her again." The admission is raw, honest, and it cuts deeper than any blade. Jake meets Running Bear's eyes and sees the truth there, the resignation, the grief, the acceptance. "I'm sorry," Jake says quietly. "For what?" "For taking her from you." Running Bear's expression hardens. "You didn't take her. She chose, and that is something I must live with." He stands turning away. "But if we fail tonight, if she dies because we couldn't work together, then neither of us deserves her." The words hang in the air like a challenge, a warning, a plea. Jake nods slowly, understanding the stakes more clearly than ever. This isn't just about saving Sarah. It's about proving that love, in all its forms, is worth fighting for. The sun begins its descent, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Jake watches the light fade, his mind turning over plans and possibilities. He thinks about Sarah, about the way she smiles when she's truly happy, about the way her hand fits perfectly in his. "We'll get her back," Jake says, more to himself than to Running Bear. "We have to." Running Bear doesn't respond, but his silence speaks volumes. They're both gambling everything on a single desperate raid. And when the darkness comes, they'll either emerge victorious or they'll die trying. Night falls like a curtain over the desert, deep and absolute. The stars emerge, cold and distant, offering no comfort. Jake and Running Bear move through the darkness like predators stalking prey, their footsteps silent on the rocky ground. The raiders' campfire glows in the distance, a beacon of warmth and danger. As they draw closer, voices drift through the still air, rough and slurred with drink. Laughter, crude jokes, the clink of bottles. Jake's stomach churns with disgust and rage. These men have no idea what's coming for them. Running Bear raises a hand, signaling Jake to stop. They crouch behind a cluster of boulders, eyes locked on the camp. 8 men, as they'd counted before. Most are drunk or close to it, sprawled around the fire in varying states of alertness. Their weapons lie within reach but not in hand, a small advantage. And there, still tied to the post, is Sarah. She's sitting now, her head bowed, her dark hair falling across her face. But even from this distance, Jake can see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fists clench against the ropes binding her wrists. She's not defeated. She's waiting. We need a distraction, Running Bear whispers. Something to draw them away from her. Jake nods, his mind racing. I'll circle around, create noise on the east side. When they go to investigate, you cut her loose and get her out. And you? I'll catch up. Running Bear's eyes narrow. That's a fool's plan. You'll be outnumbered. Do you have a better one? Silence. Running Bear's jaw tightens, but he doesn't argue. They both know time is running out. Every second they waste is another second. Sarah remains in danger. Fine, Running Bear says finally. But if you die, I'm not explaining it to her. Jake manages a grim smile. Deal. They split up, moving in opposite directions. Jake's wound protests with every step, but adrenaline keeps him moving. He reaches the eastern edge of the camp, where the horses are tied. Perfect. He pulls his knife and cuts through the rope holding the nearest horse. It whinnies and bolts, crashing through the brush. The effect is immediate. 3 of the raiders jump to their feet, cursing and grabbing their rifles. What the hell was that? Probably a coyote, one slurs. Or a damn Indian. Go check it out, the leader barks, a thick-necked man with a scar across his cheek. And take Thompson with you. 4 men stumble into the darkness, leaving 4 behind. Not ideal, but better than 8. Jake watches from the shadows as Running Bear slips toward Sarah, moving like smoke across the ground. The remaining raiders are distracted, arguing about whose fault it is that the horse got loose. Running Bear reaches Sarah and cuts her bonds in one swift motion. Her head snaps up, eyes wide with shock and relief. She opens her mouth to speak, but Running Bear presses a finger to his lips. She nods, understanding instantly. But then, disaster. One of the raiders turns, his gaze landing on the empty post. Hey! The girl's gone! Chaos erupts. Men shout, scrambling for their guns. Running Bear grabs Sarah's hand and pulls, but she stumbles, her legs weak from hours of sitting. Jake doesn't think. He just moves. He bursts from the shadows, firing his revolver. One raider drops, another dives for cover. Go! Jake roars at Running Bear. Get her out of here. But Sarah doesn't run. She plants her feet, her eyes blazing with fierce determination. I'm not leaving without you. SRA, please. A bullet whizzes past Jake's head, splintering the wood behind him. He returns fire, but his vision blurs. Too much movement, too much blood loss. He staggers, and one of the raiders charges, knife drawn. Running Bear moves like lightning. He intercepts the raider mid-stride, his own blade flashing. The man goes down with a choked gasp, but more are coming. The 4 who went to investigate the horses are BACK, and they're furious. We're surrounded, Running Bear growls, pulling Sarah behind him. We need to move, now. But there's nowhere to go. The raiders form a loose circle, guns raised, eyes gleaming with murderous intent. The leader steps forward, his scar twisting as he grins. Well, he drawls. Looks like we got ourselves a rescue party. An Indian and a half-dead cowboy. How touching. He spits into the dirt. Kill the men. Keep the girl. She'll fetch a better price if she's got some fight left in her. Sarah's face goes white. Jake feels his heart stop. This is it. This is how it ends. But then Sarah speaks. Her voice is quiet, but steel-hard, cutting through the tension like a blade. Wait! Everyone freezes. Sarah steps forward, positioning herself between Jake, Running Bear, and the raiders. You want me alive, don't you? Unharmed, worth more that way. The leader's grin widens. Smart girl. Then let them go, Sarah says, her voice steady despite the terror Jake can see in her eyes. Let them go, and I'll cooperate. No more running. No more fighting. No, Jake and Running Bear say in unison, their voices overlapping in desperate harmony. Sarah doesn't look at them. This is my choice. Sarah, Jake starts, but she cuts him off. I gave myself up, she says, her voice rising. 3 hours before you took me, I knew you were coming. The sentries warned the village. We had time to evacuate, to hide, but I knew, if you found an empty camp, you'd burn it to the ground out of spite. So I stayed. I let you take me, so my people would be safe. The revelation hits Jake like a punch. She didn't get kidnapped. She sacrificed herself. Running Bear's face goes ashen. Sarah, nitrogen monoxide. I won't let you die for me, Sarah says, finally turning to look at them. Tears streak down her face, but her expression is resolute. Not Jake, not you, Running Bear. You're both too important, too loved. Her voice breaks. Please, just go. The leader LEUGHS, a harsh, grating sound. Ain't that sweet? But I think I'll keep all 3 of you. More bodies, more money. And if you try anything stupid, little lady, I'll put a bullet in both of them. Understood? Sarah's shoulders slump. Defeat washes over her face. Jake's heart shatters. No, nitrogen monoxide. This can't be how it ends. He won't let it end like this. But before he can move, before he can do anything, a sound echoes through the canyon. Low, rhythmic, growing louder, hoofbeats. Dozens of them. The raiders freeze, confusion flickering across their faces. The leader spins toward the sound, his gun raised. What the hell? And then they appear. Apache warriors. 20 of them, maybe more, pouring into the camp on horseback, their war cries splitting the night. Running Bear's people. Sarah's people. The raiders scatter, but it's too late. The Apache swarm them, overwhelming them with sheer numbers and fury. Gunfire cracks. Blades flash. Men scream. Running Bear grabs Sarah and pulls her down, shielding her with his body. Jake drops to one knee, firing at a raider who's trying to escape. The man falls, and Jake's vision swims. He's losing consciousness, too much, too fast. But then, hands grip his shoulders, steadying him. Sarah, her face hovers above his, tear-streaked and beautiful. Stay with me, Jake, please, stay with Emma. He wants to answer, but the darkness is closing in. The last thing he sees is Sarah's face, and the last thing he hears is her voice, screaming his name. Jake wakes to the scent of wood smoke and herbs. His body feels heavy, like it's been dragged through a river and left to dry in the sun. Pain radiates from his side, but it's duller now, manageable. He blinks, his vision slowly clearing, and finds himself lying on a woven mat inside a leather tent. Sunlight filters through the gaps, casting warm, golden patterns across the floor. A figure sits beside him, Sarah. Her hair is loose, falling in dark waves over her shoulders. She's wearing Apache clothing, a simple buckskin dress, and her hands are folded in her lap. Her eyes are red, swollen from crying, but when she sees him stir, relief floods her face. Jake, she breathes, reaching for his hand. Her touch is warm, grounding him in the present. You're awake. Thank God. Sarah, Jake rasps, his throat dry as sandpaper. What happened? Running Bear's people arrive just in time, Sarah says, her voice trembling. They'd been tracking the raiders for days. When Running Bear left the village to find you, he sent word back, told them where we'd be. They came as fast as they could. She squeezes his hand. You almost died, Jake. You lost so much blood. Jake tries to sit up, but Sarah gently pushes him back down. Don't. You need to rest. The healer said your wound was infected. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. Jake's mind reels. The raiders? Dead or captured, Sarah says quietly. The Apache don't take prisoners from men like that. It was brutal, Jake, but necessary. Jake absorbs this, his emotions tangled. Relief, gratitude. He looks at Sarah, really looks at her, and sees the weight she's carrying. The guilt, the sorrow. You should have told me, he says softly, about giving yourself up. You would have tried to stop me, Sarah interrupts, her eyes flashing. And I couldn't let that happen. My people, Running Bear's people, they're my family, Jake. I couldn't let them suffer because of me. But you suffered instead. I survived, Sarah says, her voice firm. Because of you, because of Running Bear, because you both refused to give up on me. Tears spill down her cheeks. You could have died, Jake. Both of you. And it would have been my fault. Jake reaches up, wiping her tears away with his thumb. It wouldn't have been your fault, Sarah. We chose to come after you. We chose to fight. Because we love you. The words hang in the air, raw and unfiltered. Sarah's breath catches. She leans down, pressing her forehead against his. I love you too, Jake, so much, but you love him too, Jake finishes, his voice gentle. Sarah pulls back, her eyes wide with surprise and pain. How did you? I saw it, Jake says, in the way you looked at him, in the way he looked at you. It's not the same as what we have, but it's real. It's deep. And I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist. Sarah's face crumples. I'm so sorry, Jake. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to be torn between TWO worlds, 2 lives, two loves. She covers her face with her hands. I don't know how to choose. I don't know if I can choose. Jake's heart is CHES, but beneath the pain is something else. Understanding, compassion. Maybe you're not supposed to choose, he says quietly. Maybe that's not what this is about. Sarah lowers her hands, confusion flickering across her face. What do you mean? Before Jake can answer, the tent flap opens. Running Bear steps inside, his expression guarded. When he sees Jake awake, something flickers in his eyes, relief perhaps or surprise. You're stronger than I thought, Cowboy. Takes more than a bullet to kill me, Jake replies, managing a weak smile. Running Bear doesn't smile back. He looks at Sarah, then at Jake, and the tension in the small space becomes suffocating. We need to talk, all 3 of us. Sarah stands, wrapping her arms around herself. Running Bear, No, Running Bear says, his voice firm but not unkind. Let me speak first. I've had 2 days to think about what happened. About what I saw, about what it means. He takes a breath, his jaw tight. I was wrong, about many things. Jake and Sarah exchange glances. Neither speaks, waiting. Running Bear continues, his words measured and deliberate. I thought, if I could save you, Sarah, if I could prove my love was stronger, you would see in me the way I wanted to be seen. Not as your brother, not as your protector, but as something more. He pauses, pain etched across his face. But watching you with him, watching you scream his name when he fell, I realized something. What? Sarah whispers. That love is not a competition, Running Bear says. It is not something to be won or lost. It is not about who is stronger or braver or more worthy. His eyes meet. Jake's, when you were dying, Cowboy. I could have let you go. I could have saved Sarah myself and returned a hero, but I couldn't. Because as much as I wanted to hate you, I knew Sarah would never forgive me. And I knew, deep in my heart, that her happiness mattered more than my pride. Jake's throat tightens. He nods slowly, understanding the weight of what Running Bear is saying. Running Bear turns to Sarah. You love him. I see that. I accept that. And I will not stand in the way of your happiness. But know this, Sarah, you will always be my sister. My family, and I will always protect you, no matter who stands beside you." Sarah's tears flow freely now. She crosses the space between them and throws her arms around Running Bear, holding him tight. "You are my brother, Running Bear. You always have been. And I love you, not the way you wanted, but in a way that is just as deep, just as real. You are part of my soul. Nothing will change that." Running Bear holds her for a long moment, his eyes closed, his expression a mixture of grief and peace. When they finally pull apart, he looks at Jake once more. "Take care of her, Cowboy, or I will hunt you to the ends of the earth." Jake meets his gaze without flinching. "I will, you have my word." Running Bear nods, then turns and leaves the tent, the flap falling shut behind him. The silence that follows is heavy, but not oppressive. Sarah sits back down beside Jake, wiping her eyes. "He's a good man," Jake says quietly. "The best," Sarah agrees. "And he deserves someone who can love him the way he deserves. Not someone torn like me." "You're not torn, Sarah," Jake says, taking her hand again. "You're whole. You carry TWO worlds inside you. And that's not a weakness. It's a gift. It's what makes you you." He squeezes her fingers. "And I love all of you. The white girl who lost her family, the Apache daughter who found a new one, the woman who refuses to let anyone define her." Sarah's face softens. She leans down and kisses him, gentle and tender, a promise sealed in the quiet of the tent. "I love you, Jake Thornton. And I'm not letting you go." "Good," Jake whispers against her lips. "Because I'm not going anywhere." Jake recovers slowly over the next few days, his strength returning bit by bit. The Apache healers tend to him with medicines made from roots and bark, their methods ancient and effective. Sarah rarely leaves his side, though she splits her time between him and helping the village prepare for what comes next, because the danger is not over. On the fourth day, Running Bear calls a council. Jake, still weak but insistent, attends with Sarah's help. They gather in the central lodge, a large structure made of wood and hide, its walls adorned with painted symbols and weapons from generations past. The air is thick with smoke from the fire pit, and the faces around it are grim. Running Bear stands at the center, his presence commanding respect. "The raiders we captured have talked. Before they died, they revealed the truth." His eyes sweep the room. They were not working alone. They are part of a larger band, deserters from the army, men who have turned to slavery and murder for profit. Their leader, a man named Cain, operates from a fortress near the border. He has 50 men, maybe more. And he is waiting for his scouts to return, with her. He gestures to Sarah, and every eye in the lodge turns toward her. She doesn't flinch, though Jake feels her hand tighten around his. "Cain will not stop," Running Bear continues. "When his men do not return, he will send more. He will come for her himself if he must. He sees her as valuable, a woman who speaks both tongues, who knows both worlds. He will use her to broker deals, to betray both Apache and white settlements. We cannot let that happen." Murmurs ripple through the council. An elder, his face lined with age and wisdom, speaks. "Then we must move the village. Hide deeper in the mountains where white men cannot follow. That will only delay the inevitable," Running Bear argues. "Cain has trackers. He has resources. He will find us eventually. And when he does, we will be unprepared. Then what do you propose?" Another warrior asks, his tone sharp. Running Bear's jaw sets. "We strike first. We take the fight to his fortress. We end this before it begins." Chaos erupts. Voices clash, some in agreement, others in fierce opposition. Jake watches, his mind racing. He understands the Apache way, defend the homeland, protect the people. But he also understands the cost of such a raid. Lives will be lost. Blood will be spilled. Finally, Jake stands, though the effort makes his head spin. The room falls silent, all eyes on the white cowboy, who has no right to speak in their council, yet does so anyway. With respect, Jake begins, his voice steady. A direct assault on a fortified position with 50 armed men is suicide. Even if you have the numbers, you don't have the firepower. Kane's men have rifles, maybe even cannons. You'll lose half your warriors before you even reach the gates. Running Bear's eyes narrow. Then what would you suggest, Cowboy? That we run? That we hide? No, Jake says firmly. I suggest we use strategy. Kane is expecting his men to return with Sarah. When they don't, he'll send scouts to investigate. We intercept those scouts. We send a message back to Kane, one that makes him think his men succeeded. We lure him out of his fortress, into terrain where you have the advantage. The council members exchange glances. It's a bold plan and a risky one, but it's also smart. Running Bear crosses his arms. And how do we send this message? How do we convince Kane that his men are alive when they are dead? Jake looks at Sarah. She meets his gaze and understands immediately. We use ME, she says quietly. We stage my arrival at the fortress. I go in, pretending to be captured, and gather information. Then, when the time is right, I signal you, and you strike. Absolutely not. Jake and Running Bear say in unison, their voices overlapping once again. Sarah's eyes flash with fire. It's the only way. Kane doesn't know me personally. He only knows I'm valuable. If I go in willingly, if I play the part of the broken captive, I can get close to him. Close enough to learn his plans. Close enough to sabotage him from within. It's too dangerous, Jake protests, his heart pounding. If they discover the TRU, They won't, Sarah insists. I've spent years living between two worlds. I know how to hide what I am. I know how to survive. Running Bear shakes his head. I will not allow it. The risk is too great. You don't get to allow or disallow anything, Sarah snaps, her voice sharp. This is my choice. My life, and I'm tired of being protected like a fragile thing that will break at the first sign of danger. She stands, facing both men with fierce determination. I am Apache. I am a survivor, and I will not hide while others fight my battles. The silence that follows is absolute. Even the fire seems to hold its breath. Jake's mind races, torn between his desperate need to keep Sarah safe and his growing realization that she's right. This is her fight as much as theirs. Maybe more. Finally, the elder speaks again, his voice thoughtful. The woman has courage, and courage, when paired with wisdom, can turn the tide of any battle. He looks at Running Bear. If she is willing to take this risk, we should not stop her. But we should prepare, ensure she has every advantage. Running Bear's fists clench. Jake can see the conflict raging inside him, the warrior's logic battling against the brother's heart. At last he exhales slowly and nods. Fine, but we do this my way. We send scouts ahead. We map every inch of that fortress. We learn their routines, their weaknesses. And we have a plan to extract you the moment things go wrong. Agreed, Sarah says. Jake wants to argue, wants to find some other way, but he knows Sarah has made up her mind. And deep down, he knows she's right. This is the best chance they have. Then I'm going with her, he says. Nitrogen monoxide, Running Bear and Sarah say together. Jake glares at them both. I'm not letting her walk into that place alone. You can barely stand, Running Bear points out. You'll be a liability, not an asset. I'm fine. You're not, Sarah says gently, placing a hand on his chest. Jake, I need you here. I need you to coordinate with Running Bear to make sure the plan works. If you come with me and you're captured or killed, everything falls apart. Her eyes plead with him. Please, trust me to do this. Jake's resolve wavers. He looks into her eyes and sees the strength there, the unshakable will, and he realizes for all his desire to protect her, she doesn't need protection. She needs partnership. She needs him to believe in her. All right, he says, the word tasting like a sach in his mouth. But you come back to me, Sarah. You hear me? You come back. I will, Sarah promises. I swear it. The council ends with a plan in motion. Scouts are dispatched to reconnoiter Cain's fortress. Weapons are prepared. Strategies are debated late into the night. And through it all, Jake and Running Bear find themselves working side by side, their rivalry slowly transforming into something resembling respect, maybe even friendship. But beneath the surface, fear gnaws at Jake's heart. Fear that this plan will fail. Fear that Sarah will be hurt, or worse. Fear that he'll lose the woman he loves before he ever truly had her. And in the quiet moments, when no one else is watching, Running Bear's face betrays the same fear. The morning Sarah leaves is cold, the desert air biting and sharp. Frost clings to the sagebrush, and the sky is a pale, washed-out blue. Jake stands at the edge of the village, watching as Sarah prepares for the most dangerous mission of her life. She's dressed in torn, dirty clothing, her face smudged with ash to make her look beaten, exhausted. Her wrists bear faint rope burns, carefully applied to sell the illusion of captivity. She looks vulnerable, and it takes every ounce of Jake's self-control not to pull her into his arms and beg her to stay. Running Bear approaches, carrying a small leather pouch. "Take this," he says, handing it to Sarah. Inside is a powder made from wild tobacco and red clay. "If you are in danger, if you need us to come immediately, burn it. The smoke will rise white and thick. We will see it from miles away." Sarah nods, tucking the pouch into her belt. "Thank you, brother." Running Bear's expression is unreadable, but his eyes betray him. "Come back alive, Sarah. That is all I ask." "I will," she promises. Jake steps forward, unable to stay silent any longer. "Sarah, She cuts him off with a kiss, fierce and desperate, pouring everything she can't say into that single moment. When she pulls away, her eyes are bright with unshed tears. "I love you, Jake Thornton. Remember that. No matter what happens, I love you too," Jake whispers, his voice breaking. "More than anything." Sarah turns and mounts the horse Running Bear's warriors have prepared for her, a tired, worn animal that fits the story they're selling. 2 Apache scouts, disguised as Cain's men, will escort her to the fortress and then vanish into the hills. It's a delicate deception, one wrong word, one suspicious glance, and it all falls apart. Jake watches as she rides away, her figure growing smaller against the vast expanse of desert. His chest feels hollow, like something vital has been ripped out. Running Bear stands beside him, equally silent. "She's strong," Running Bear says finally. "Stronger than both of us." "I know," Jake replies. "But that doesn't make this any easier." "No," Running Bear agrees. It doesn't. They return to the village where preparations continue in earnest. Maps are drawn and redrawn. Weapons are sharpened. Horses are readied. Jake throws himself into the work, desperate for distraction, but his mind never leaves Sarah. 3 days pass. 3 agonizing days of waiting, of second-guessing, of imagining 1,000 ways things could go wrong. The scouts return with reports. Cain's fortress is formidable, built into the side of a canyon with high walls and limited access. 50 men guard it, heavily armed and disciplined. Getting in will be nearly impossible. Getting out will be even harder. On the 4th day, smoke rises on the horizon. White smoke, thick, and unmistakable. Jake's blood turns to ice. She's in trouble. Running Bear is already moving, shouting orders to his warriors. "Mount up, we ride now." Within minutes, 20 Apache warriors are on horseback, weapons in hand, faces painted for war. Jake climbs onto a borrowed horse, ignoring the pain still radiating from his side. He's not at full strength, but he doesn't care. Sarah needs him, and that's all that matters. They ride hard, pushing the horses to their limits. The landscape blurs past, rock and sand and sky merging into a single, desperate rush. Jake's heart pounds in his ears, louder than the hoofbeats, louder than the wind. Please, he prays to whatever God might be listening. Please let her be alive. They reach the canyon as the sun begins to set, painting the walls in shades of blood and gold. Cain's fortress looms ahead, a dark, imposing structure that seems to grow from the rock itself. Smoke still rises from somewhere inside, faint now, but visible. Running Bear raises a hand, signaling the warriors to stop. We go on foot from here. Quiet, fast. We find Sarah and we get out. Understood? Grim nods all around. They dismount and move through the shadows, silent as ghosts. Jake's pulse races. His hands are steady on his revolver, but inside, he's a storm of fear and fury. They reach the outer wall and scale it using ropes and sheer determination. The guards are lazy, confident in their fortress's strength. It's a fatal mistake. Running Bear's warriors move like death itself, taking out sentries with ruthless efficiency. Inside, the fortress is a maze of corridors and chambers carved into the rock. Jake and Running Bear move together, following the faint trail of smoke. Voices echo from somewhere ahead, angry voices, and the sound of someone screaming, "Sarah!" Jake's vision goes red. He surges forward, but Running Bear grabs his arm, holding him back. "Wait, we need to K&O what we're walking into." They creep closer, peering around a corner into a large chamber. And there, at the center, is Sarah. She's on her knees, her hands bound behind her back, her face bloodied. A man stands over her, tall and brutal, with a scar running from his eye to his jaw. Cain. He holds a knife, the blade gleaming in the torchlight. "You lead to me," Cain snarls, his voice like gravel. "You're no captured prize, you're a spy. And spies, they die slow." Sarah spits blood at his feet, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Do your worst. I've survived far worse than you." Cain laughs, a sound devoid of humor. "We'll see about that." He raises the knife, and Jake moves. Jake doesn't think. He just acts. His revolver barks twice, and two of Cain's men drop before anyone realizes they're under attack. Running Bear is right behind him, his blade flashing as he takes down another guard. The chamber erupts into chaos. "Sarah!" Jake roars, fighting his way through the press of bodies. Bullets fly. Steel clashes against steel. The air fills with smoke and the metallic tang of blood. Cain spins toward Jake, his eyes widening in recognition. "The cowboy. I heard you were dead." "Heard wrong," Jake snarls, firing again. The bullet grazes Cain's shoulder, spinning him around. But the man is fast, faster than Jake expected. Cain lunges, knife in hand, and Jake barely dodges. The blade slices across his arm, drawing a line of fire. Jake stumbles, his wounded side screaming in protest. Cain presses the advantage, driving him back toward the wall. "You should have stayed dead, cowboy. Now you'll die with your whore." Rage explodes in Jake's chest. He swings his revolver like a club, catching Cain across the jaw. The man staggers, and Jake fires point blank. The bullet takes Cain in the chest, and he goes down, his eyes wide with shock. But there's no time to celebrate. More of Cain's men pour into the chamber, and the Apache warriors are outnumbered. Jake fights his way to Sarah, cutting her bonds with shaking hands. She collapses into his arms, gasping for breath. "I'm here," Jake whispers, holding her tight. "I've got you." "Jake," Sarah breathes, her voice raw. "Behind you." Jake spins just as another raider charges. But before the man can reach them, Running Bear is there, his blade finding its mark with deadly precision. The raider falls, and Running Bear turns to Jake, their eyes locking for a single electric moment. "Go!" Running Bear shouts, "Get her out. What about you?" Jake yells back, "I hold them off. Move." Jake hesitates, torn between gratitude and guilt. But Sarah tugs at his arm, her eyes pleading. "Jake, please." They run, weaving through the corridors as the sounds of battle echo behind them. Jake's lungs burn, his vision tunnels, but he doesn't stop, can't stop. Not until Sarah is safe. They burst out into the open air, and the cool night wind feels like a blessing. Apache warriors are already mounting up, covering their retreat. Jake lifts Sarah onto a horse and climbs up behind her, his arms wrapped protectively around her waist. But Running Bear still hasn't emerged. We have to go back, Sarah gasps, her voice frantic. Running Bear is still in there. Jake looks back at the fortress, smoke pouring from its entrance. His heart clenches. Running Bear saved his life. Twice now. He can't leave him behind. Stay here, Jake tells Sarah, sliding off the horse. Jake, nitrogen monoxide. But he's already running back toward the fortress, his revolver reloaded and ready. He plunges back into the smoke and chaos, following the sounds of fighting. And there, in the heart of the carnage, is Running Bear, surrounded by 5 men, wounded but still fighting. Jake doesn't hesitate. He fires, taking down one, then another. Running Bear dispatches a third. Together, they fight back to back, their movements synchronized despite having never trained together. It's instinct, born of mutual respect and a shared purpose. The last 2 raiders fall, and Running Bear slumps against the wall, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Jake grabs his arm, hauling him upright. Come on, we're not dying in this hellhole. Running Bear manages a pained smile. You came back for me. Of course I did, Jake says. You're family now. Whether you like it or not. They stumble out of the fortress together, supporting each other's weight. Sarah is waiting, tears streaming down her face. The moment she sees them, she dismounts and runs, throwing her arms around both men. Don't you ever do that to me again, she sobs, her voice muffled against their chests. Either of you. Jake and Running Bear exchange glances over her head. Despite everything, they smile. The ride back to the village is long and hard, but they make it. The Apache people welcome them with cheers and celebration. Kane's fortress is destroyed, burned to the ground by Running Bear's warriors. The threat is ended, at least for now. Days pass, wounds heal. The village returns to its rhythms of life and work. And through it all, Jake, Sarah, and Running Bear find a new balance, fragile but real. One evening, as the sun sets over the desert, the 3 of them sit together by a fire outside Sarah's dwelling. The silence between them is comfortable now, no longer weighted with tension or unspoken words. I'm leaving soon, Jake says quietly. Heading back to the settlements. There's work to be done, fences to mend, both literal and otherwise. Sarah's hand finds his, their fingers intertwining. I know, she says. But you'll come back. Always, Jake promises. As often as I can. Running Bear stirs the fire with a stick, watching the sparks rise into the night. You are welcome here, Cowboy. You have proven yourself. You have earned the respect of my people, and of me. Jake nods, deeply moved. That means more than you know. Sarah looks between them, her eyes bright. You both saved me, she says, echoing the words she spoke in the heat of battle. Not because you feared death, but because you cared more for someone else. That's what makes you both heroes. That's what makes you brothers. The word hangs in the air, powerful and true. Jake and Running Bear lock eyes, and something passes between them. An understanding, a bond forged in fire and blood. Brothers, Running Bear repeats softly. Yes, I think that is right. They sit together as the stars emerge. 3 souls bound by love, sacrifice, and the knowledge that some connections transcend rivalry, transcend culture, transcend even the boundaries of the heart. Sarah leans against Jake, her head on his shoulder, while Running Bear tends the fire. The desert wind whispers through the canyon, carrying with it the promise of new dawns and endless possibilities. I don't fear death, Jake murmurs, repeating the words that have become their shared truth. I fear losing you. Sarah smiles, her eyes closing. Then you have nothing to fear, because I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Running Bear adds another log to the fire, the flames leaping higher, casting dancing shadows across their faces. We are bound now, he says, by more than words, by more than blood, by something deeper, something that will last. And in that moment, beneath a sky full of stars and surrounded by the vast, unforgiving beauty of the frontier, they find peace. Not the peace of endings, but the peace of new beginnings. The peace of knowing that love in all its forms is worth every sacrifice, every battle, every moment of doubt. They have faced death and survived. They have faced loss and found strength. And together, they have discovered that true courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to love anyway, to fight anyway, to believe anyway. As the fire burns low and the night deepens, they remain together, 3 hearts beating as one, bound forever by the trials they've endured and the love that carried them through. And somewhere in the distance, the desert wind carries their story across the land, a testament to the power of loyalty, the strength of sacrifice, and the enduring truth that love, no matter how complicated, no matter how impossible it seems, is always, always worth fighting for.
Thanks for watching this story till the end. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And before you go, check out these other amazing Western stories waiting for you next. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you on the next ride.